Hi everyone, welcome to Daily Revelations. This is our study going through just different books of the Bible and seeing what God has to say to us using precept methods. And so if you are new to this study, it may be because you just joined us on our brand new podcast, but we've been on YouTube for quite a while. So make sure you check out Daily Revelations there as well. But we're starting the book of Daniel, and so a whole new venture. And today we're in Daniel 1, and we're going to be in Daniel 1 all week. That's how we roll with things here. And so as you dig through Daniel, we're going to reread and use different precept methods to pull out what God is speaking to us. And every day, weekday, I'll share with you what God laid on my heart. And I hope you don't just stay with that. Dig into the Word yourself. Use these methods to spend time with God and to dig in. So that's enough intro. But Daniel 1, we're going to talk about quarantine, confinement. Those are words that we don't like, especially in a society where we want to be free. We want to do what we want to do. And yet, just as Daniel, but not even as much as Daniel, we find ourselves in some places now with COVID having to deal with being confined. And that is a difficult thing because we are such a freedom-based society here in the U.S. and really most around the world. We're used to traveling around the world. We're used to having that freedom that we can go anywhere, do anything, if the means provide, and if we can work hard enough. That's what we're told. But here we see a young man who had all the privileges in life, yet they were stripped away, and what he chose to do was to not focus on his confinement, but instead focus on what he did have and what God was doing in his midst. So the verses that really popped out to me today, the first day, as you read through this, you just absorb, you just look, say, God, pray beforehand and say, what do you have to speak to me today? In just this first overview of what I'm looking at. And the thing that popped out to me, the first verse was in verse 8. It said that Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself. He made up his mind not that he would escape. He made up his mind not that he would grumble and complain, but that he would stay true to the God that he knew was true. And that was his anchor. And in that, he sought permission from the authorities that were over him. He didn't just say, well, you aren't the ruler of my country, and just get really upset and, go off, whatever. He saw God's hand in his captivity and saw these people who were put over him in his life as people that God put there. And if he was to do what God asked him to do, God would open those doors. And so he tested. He asked, about changing his diet. And we'll talk more about that probably later this week. And so we find out at the end of chapter 1 that because of the way that God gave him favor and compassion, which is talked about in verse 9, he entered into the king's service. And not only did he do that, he entered into the king's service for 59 years total, from when he got there to the end of his life. And that's a long time. He chose to take that assignment and not grumble and complain about it, but say, this is my purpose. And in this confinement, I will serve God. This is where God has put me. I will not back down. And so he continued in that service until the first year of King Cyrus. And I want to give you a little hint because we don't really hear about this in the book of Daniel, but the first year of King Cyrus is who God used to actually restore Jerusalem. And as we were studying some of the other books of the Bible of the rebuilding of the temple and the wall, this is who we hear about, and how all of the articles go back from the temple that were taken that we see at the beginning of Daniel 1, and how Jerusalem is restored. But during that almost the entire time of the captivity of Jerusalem, Daniel is serving a king in a foreign country. And God has a purpose in it. And we're going to read more about that as we study this chapter. But the thing I want to point out is that when we find ourselves confined within boundaries that we don't want to be in, what do? Do we push out at those boundaries? Do we complain? Do we try everything we do to get out of where we are? Or do we seek God's presence in them, his favor, his compassion in this place? I heard a quote this morning and it said that the purposes of God do not guarantee us an easy road. They only guarantee us compassion on that road, or companionship on that road. God is with us if we stay in his will. He is not with us if we don't. Daniel knew that. And so Daniel said, I will choose to live in this foreign land because this is where God is. So whatever circumstance you find yourself in today, know that that confinement is where God is, if he has put you there. Don't fight it. Find him in it. Find his peace, find his compassion, find his mercy and his love there, because that is where your purpose is. And we fight against it if we don't embrace it. And then we never discover the beauty of what God can do when he puts us in one place. So thanks for joining me on Daily Revelations today. I will see you again next time as we continue this study of Daniel 1. Bye, everyone.